For years, there's been this question quietly bubbling up in naval intelligence circles. A huge question, really. One that could redefine global power for the rest of this century. And today, we're going to dig into it, because the evidence is pointing to something big. A new superpower rising at sea.
I mean, think about it. For the better part of 80 years, the world's oceans have been dominated by one type of warship, from one nation, the American nuclear-powered supercarrier. It's been the undisputed king. But now we have to ask, is a challenger finally here? Well, it's not a hypothetical anymore. A challenger is emerging, and the evidence is piling up fast.
And this is where it all begins. Not with some big official announcement, but with whispers. With these grainy, blurry images snapped from satellites miles up in space, and these covert photos leaked from inside the shipyards themselves. They all hint at a project of absolutely immense scale and ambition. A secret that, well, isn't so secret anymore.
Okay, so how do we know this isn't all just talk and speculation? Well, because the puzzle pieces are all starting to fit together, and they're revealing the unmistakable shape of China's fourth aircraft carrier, what we know as the Type 004.
And let's be clear, the evidence here is incredibly specific. We're not just seeing some big ship being built. Analysts are identifying these colossal sections of a hull, way bigger than any previous Chinese carrier. They're spotting structures that look an awful lot like the protective covers you'd use for nuclear reactors. And, maybe most importantly, they see these grooves being cut into the deck, grooves for advanced electromagnetic catapults. Yeah, this is not just another carrier, this is a quantum leap.
So that brings us to the two game-changing technologies that are really at the heart of the Type 04. And these aren't just small upgrades, we're talking about a fundamental shift in what a Navy can do.
First up, nuclear propulsion. To put it simply, this is the holy grail for any Navy that wants to project power across the globe. Instead of being tied to this long chain of vulnerable fuel tankers, a nuclear-powered ship can just go. It can sail almost forever, limited only by the food and supplies for its crew. And this really lays out the difference, doesn't it? China's first three carriers, they're conventional. They have a leash, they always need to refuel. The Type 004, with its own nuclear reactor on board, cuts that leash completely. It can sail farther, it can sail faster, and it can stay on station for way longer. Plus, it generates a truly massive amount of electricity, not just for speed, but for powering the ship's second game-changing piece of tech.
And that technology is called EMALS, the Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System. Now, instead of using a powerful but kind of clumsy steam piston to throw planes off the deck, EMALS uses these incredibly powerful, precisely controlled electromagnets. It is so much smoother, it's more powerful, and you can tune it for anything from a massive heavy fighter jet to a small, lightweight drone.
You can really see the whole evolution right here. China started with the ski jump, which is basically a simple ramp. It works, sure, but it puts some serious limits on how heavy your planes can be. And that means less fuel and fewer weapons. Then, the Fujian carrier introduced catapults, a huge step up. But the Type 004, it's going to perfect it, allowing it to launch a full air wing of heavier, more powerful, and way more diverse aircraft.
But you know what makes this whole story just mind-blowing? The speed. I mean, most naval powers took the better part of a century to get carrier aviation right. China is basically doing it in a little over a single decade.
Just look at this timeline. In 2012, they get their hands on an old, refurbished Soviet hull and basically use it as a training ship. 7 years later, boom, they build their own from scratch. Just 3 years after that, they launch a way more advanced carrier with catapults, and now, only 2 years later, they're starting work on a full-blown nuclear-powered supercarrier. The pace of this is, well, it's just unprecedented in modern history.
So, of course, this all leads to the big one, the inevitable question. How is the Type 004 going to stack up against the gold standard, the current benchmark for naval power, the US Navy's own Ford-class supercarriers?
All right, let's look at the tail of the tape. On paper, these projections are just stunning. The Type 004 is expected to be about the same length, it's going to use the same number of advanced EMALS catapults, and it could potentially carry even more aircraft than its American counterpart. But just look at that second line there, displacement.
This chart, as simple as it looks, tells a massive story. At a projected 110, maybe 120,000 tons, the Type 04 isn't just going to be on par with the Ford class, it could be significantly larger. That would potentially make it the largest warship ever built, by any nation, ever. And we all know a carrier is only as good as the planes it carries, right? The Type 004 is being designed from the ground up to carry a true fifth-generation force. We're talking J-35 stealth fighters, specialized electronic attack jets, and maybe most important of all, the KJ-600. That's a dedicated early warning aircraft that acts as the eyes and ears of the whole fleet, a huge capability that China's older carriers just didn't have. Throw in advanced helicopters and combat drones, and you've got yourself a seriously formidable force.
Look, building a warship like this isn't just about bending steel or showing off cool tech. No, this is a profound statement of strategic ambition. It's designed to fundamentally change China's role on the world stage.
And this quote from a People's Liberation Army Navy admiral, well, it pretty much sums up the entire mindset. The goal here isn't just about defending China's coastline anymore, it's about projecting power across the globe without any limits.
And nuclear carriers are the absolute key to making that vision a reality. They're what lets you go from a regional force to a true blue water navy, one that can sustain operations in the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic, pretty much anywhere its interests lie. And the ambition is crystal clear. According to a Pentagon report, the goal is a fleet of 9 carriers by 2035, with a big chunk of those being nuclear powered.
But hang on. Before we go and declare a new king of the seas, there's one last absolutely crucial piece to this puzzle. Because building the ship is one thing, but operating it effectively in the heat of the moment, well, that's something else entirely.
And this right here, this gets to the absolute heart of it all. On one side, you have China's unbelievable industrial power and its breakneck speed. But on the other, you have the United States Navy's 100 years of hard-won, practical experience. That is a full century of developing tactics, of training pilots to land on a tiny pitching deck in the middle of a storm, of building a global logistics network, and of learning lessons, many of them written in blood. Because at the end of the day, the hardware is only half the battle. Mastering all these complex new systems, from the nuclear reactor to the EMALS catapults, that's going to take time. Training thousands of elite pilots and crew members to run a fleet of supercarriers, that's a massive human challenge. Building a ship is one thing. Building the deep, institutional knowledge to wield it as an effective weapon is something else altogether.
Which leaves us right here with the ultimate question. China has proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it can build the ships, the planes, and the technology of a premier naval power, and at a speed the world has frankly never seen before. But can it build the experience to match? That, right there, is the unwritten chapter in this incredible race for naval supremacy.